Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic podcast, a space to honor women's rites of passage stories. From menarche to menopause, the initiations of womanhood all live within our wombs. Through our first bleed to our last, we come to know ourselves more deeply. This is a platform to reclaim the sacredness of all of it. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, birth keeper and women's coach, specializing in womb wellness and hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling? Let's dive in. Hey, women. I know if you are here with me listening to this podcast, then you are likely a woman who is a lot like me. And the specific way I want to talk about that today is having the desire not to project up and out of your body or necessarily move into your higher chakra centers all the time, but rather having this deep desire to descend into your body, to connect with your womb, and to find your wisdom in this internal space, and to allow your cycle and your body to be your deepest spiritual practice. If you're at all like me, maybe those things resonate with you. And if you're at all like me, you've had trouble finding women's gatherings, retreats, things like that, where there isn't a focus on going up and out of the body and having these gigantic heart blasted open transformational experiences, but rather there is a focus on deep foundational nourishment and a very grounded transformation that doesn't require weeks of integration when you get home. Because really, our nervous systems aren't primed for that. And I don't know about you, but I'm in a phase of life where my nervous system is of the utmost importance to me. And it's very obvious to me when it's dysregulated. And I just don't have a lot of space for that these days. This desire and this longing for something that we weren't seeing is why Laura and I created the Nourished and Thriving Women's Retreat in the Sacred Valley of Peru. It's happening May 19th to 26th, so just in a few weeks here, and we would absolutely love to have you. This retreat is for the woman who wants to connect with like-minded sisters, to explore sacred places in Peru on a slow timeline, to have quiet mornings filled with bone broth, cacao, and yoga, to enter into workshops that bring you deeper into understanding your female physiology and how to embody each season of your cycle, as well as having a sacred naked day with practices to get more comfortable in our own skin, with yoni steam sessions, with full body massages, 3 nourishing meals a day that are animal-based, not plant-based, and just generally all of the things that we ourselves would have wanted in a retreat. We have 7 women coming so far, and so we have 5 spots left for this retreat. Again, it's happening May 19th to 26th in the Sacred Valley of Peru, and you can find all the details as well as a link to schedule a obligation-free call in the show notes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, send me a DM on Instagram. I would love to chat to you and see if it's the right opportunity. And speaking of nourishing experiences, we have my friend Sara on the podcast today, and I'm really excited for this episode. Sara and I mentioned this in the podcast episode, but we actually connected on Instagram like over 4 years ago when I first started my doula Instagram account. And Sara had, I believe she says her son was about 2 years old at the time. And yeah, we connected on Instagram then and have kind of stayed in each other's circles for a while. And I remember when Sara was pregnant with her second babe, and she reached out to me asking if I had any, suggestions on questions to ask a potential midwife. And Sara and I's conversation and sort of breaking down what she desired for her birth is what gave her the opportunity to discover that what she really wanted was to birth at home. And I'm just so grateful, so grateful for our connection. Sara is someone who, I say this, and I'll say this in a minute in the episode description, but she just really has utilized motherhood as her deepest wisdom gleaning experience. And if you follow Sara on Instagram, her handle is in the bio of the episode in the show notes. you will see how eloquently she is able to translate the seemingly mundane experiences of motherhood into deep spiritual truths. And that's something that I just adore about her. So, yeah, we have Sara on the podcast today. And so, what I wrote for the episode of this, the description of this episode, my goodness, bear with me, women. What happens when you unexpectedly get pregnant at 22 with your partner of just 3 months and your Baptist community doesn't support you? Well, your identity completely shatters, but maybe that's actually what was in your highest alignment all along. This week on the podcast, Sara shares her two birth stories. One will break your heart and perhaps ignite your sacred rage as it did mine, and one will knit your heart back together with its sweet simplicity. Sara has truly taken her role as mother as her spiritual path, and listening to her wisdom-filled storytelling peppered with insights is nothing short of nourishing. And there's one more thing. Before we dive into Sara's episode, I do want to share something Sara shared with me is that she was feeling a little bit funny after we recorded, realizing that she said both you can't pour from an empty cup and that as a mother, sometimes you do find that reserve. And what we were chatting about after she realized she said both of those things was how we really can hold both as truths and that motherhood really is this balance between when to give yourself grace and when to really like find that grit. Um, and so I love that. I love that balance between giving yourself grace and knowing when to push yourself and knowing when you can't pour from an empty cup and then knowing when there still is that reserve. And so that's just something for you women, especially those of you who are mothers, just to ponder like, where is your truth in that? All right, let's get into Sara's sweet episode. All right. Hey, Sara, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
I know this is really fun for me because I like we were sharing about this when I first asked you to come on, but it's just kind of crazy how long you and I have been like circling around in each other's spheres.
I know, I think it's been like 4 years
Yeah.
almost. Yeah, I think we met when maybe around the time that my son was 1, I
Mm.
think, maybe a little before then. I'm not sure. It's been a while.
Yeah, yeah. And I was doing like different work then. Like I was more in the like doula, um,
Mm.
which in a way like still informs my work, that like tending to women. But yeah, it was like a different vibe. And I feel like I've gotten to see your evolution and I know you've witnessed my evolution. And it's just kind of cool like how online spaces can connect us to like really rad women.
Yes, I think online spaces like yours have been the ones that really opened my eyes and my heart to understanding my body as a woman so much more. I feel like that's been circulating, especially recently, but over the years, it just seems like that's where a lot of knowledge enters in for a lot of people. And
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like this idea. I mean, I was just saying this before we hit record. It's like we learned so much from just what other women are experiencing and what they're doing and what they've learned through their lives. It's like kind of
Mm.
in a way, like I've never thought about it like this, but everyone always talks about wanting to go back to the village and like re-villaging.
Mm.
And in a way, like, of course, online is not a substitute for that, but there is this sort of village atmosphere that I think comes up online and like the birth and body connection, womb cycle worlds, like on Instagram, where like we are learning from each other's experiences in that way. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like an expanded version of the village where you have so much more potential to dive in with so many more people than maybe you would have in a typical village. But
Mhm.
there are those elements that are missing from that
Yeah.
from that. So there's like pros and cons, but I mean, it is what it is. At least we have that, even if we're not living in close proximity to each other.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see the beauty in it. But yeah, I often think about that. Like, what is often missing is, and I don't know, maybe we'll get into this later, but like, I think especially when a woman like is freshly postpartum, that like in-person network. Like, I just wonder what that was like when there was
Oh,
the village.
that would have been amazing. Oh
And I
man.
know like people are creating that in their own ways, but I think it takes a lot of effort to create that now because it's like not the norm.
Yeah. This individualistic society that we kind of live in and we've created as humans, just it just sucks.
Anyways, one of my, I always start with this question for women because I think it's nice to orient to like where you are in time and space, both in like your mini cycle and your larger life cycle. So I love for women to share where they're at in their menstrual cycle and then also like what phase of life, what phase of womanhood you're in.
Yeah, so I am currently on my bleed. I'm about day 2 in, so kind of right in the middle, and
You're in
it's
it.
yes, very much in it, and I'm feeling it, and I'm enjoying it honestly because this is only my second bleed since what 2 years now from being postpartum, and
Yeah.
it's the longest period of time I've ever gone without it, and so it feels really nice. I know a lot of people are like, why do you want it back? You know, before I had my period back, why do you want it back? And I was like, well, I just want to feel a sense of normalcy,
Mm, mm.
and it feels good to be like hormonally cycling and
Oh yeah.
emotionally cycling. There's just so many things that are, I think, accessible to us when we are in a hormonal normal. But there are also some really beautiful things that are, I think, accessible to us when we are not on that same cycle and when we are going through those postpartum times, because it's just so much, I think, inspiration especially comes through. But yeah, that's a little bit where I am
In
with
the
my little
you
one.
said inspiration comes through like in the postpartum.
Yes, it's
Mm.
wild so much, and sometimes it feels like it's too much because you can't really do a lot of follow through because you
Yeah,
have a
for
little
sure. It's like a lot
baby.
of visioning, I bet.
Yes, it's really hard to fully bring anything, like realize anything, like make it a part of your reality, but you can do
Yeah.
a lot of downloading from like universal downloading and all of that, but it's very difficult to like contain it and you're just like, "Oh, I want to do something with this," you know.
I can imagine like just yeah, like a lot of building of energy, but there's like not, I mean, almost like, yeah, without your bleed, there's almost not like a release. And so maybe it just, does it feel like that? Like it just continues building?
Yes, yes. And then the added effect is like when you are inspired to create something, like to bring something to fruition, your body's not fully ready to do that, and
Yeah.
your little baby's not really ready for you to do that either. They just need
Mhm.
you. And so, especially if you're really practicing attachment parenting, like they
Mm.
just want to be with you 24/7. And it feels so good to just fully be in that. But and then at the same time, because of that, because you're holding your baby and you're just kind of like, especially if you're doing the 40 days after
Yeah.
birth, you're in bed. And so it really does give you time to write and to think and dream, and lots of mental, emotional stuff coming through right
Mm.
around that time.
That's so interesting. So what would you say like you've noticed is the biggest difference in like how you're going about like visioning and creation now that you're back in your cycle? I mean, I guess it hasn't been that long, so maybe you're still figuring that out, but
Oh, oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I fully landed
yeah.
yet with that realization. I
Yeah.
would love to recognize that though when that information does come through for me, because I feel like it must be a little different. And I mean, I'm already feeling like I'm able to accomplish more and
Mm.
practice more action now that my little guy is up and walking around. Um, it's yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said too, just around like wanting the cycle back to be back in that hormonal rhythm and back in that like emotional flow too. I think that's such a cool thing to say and to witness that you actually want that. You want the like hormonal and emotional cycling and ups and downs. And I think that like just as women, we feel really at home in that.
Mm.
Like gives us a sense of like, okay, I know where I am in time and space.
Yes, and a sense of orienting.
Yeah.
And without that, it's very much like, oh, I don't, I don't have like a way of understanding myself as well without it. Like if I feel really, really sad, I have to, I can't be like, oh, well, maybe at this point in my cycle,
Yeah.
or if I'm
Yeah.
feeling, I can't make sense of it without it. It is like
Yeah,
a compass in a
it
way,
is.
our cycles. And I think it's so beautiful to
Mm.
like really sit with that. And you were really one of those first people to introduce it to me in that way.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's so sweet. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like when any woman comes into this knowing of her cycle, it's like more of a remembering than anything else. It's like, oh, yeah, like I'm
Mm.
coming back home to the reality of my existence.
Mm.
Oh man, there was something I was just gonna say with what you said. What was it? Oh yeah, I was gonna ask in postpartum, does it feel like I'm just like asking you all these postpartum questions because obviously I haven't experienced it myself, and I'm so curious about these like particulars. So it sounds like does it feel like a floaty space? Like is it floaty or is it more like really grounded? Does it lean towards one of
Mm.
those?
It feels very floaty, and I feel like maybe it feels floaty, especially because I think it's Ayurveda that talks about when a woman gives birth, she's filled with a lot, with the elements. You've been depleted of your water, you've
Mm,
been depleted of your fire,
mm,
in those senses, and so you're primarily air and earth. I think those were
mm,
the terms, but primarily air. I think that's the one I'll focus on, and because your
yeah.
whole body is coming back together. There's all this space in your intestines and just your physical body that is like kind of settling back in after releasing a baby.
Yeah.
And so for a long, long time after, there's just all this space that you're
Mm,
dealing with. And so I think I definitely would feel more floaty than grounded because uh it yeah, I feel like I felt really, really grounded during my pregnancy and
mm,
then a little more floaty. And it's not like a bad, it's just different, and
yeah.
they're both good. They both
Yeah.
feel good, but they're very different. And I also noticed this time, especially, I think there's a lot of things at play, but I haven't cried very much at all this
Mm,
entire postpartum. I think
wow.
for the first, it took me almost a whole year where I even shed a tear about anything
Whoa.
uh, after giving birth this most recent time. And at first I was like, wow, this is kind of weird. Like I miss that. I like crying. Like sometimes it feels really good to cry. And it's like one of those things again where people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean you miss crying? What do you mean you
Yeah,
miss your
I
cycle?
know what you mean though.
Yeah, it feels so good. And
It's a release. It's like a big release.
yeah, yes, and I'm also a double water sign, so I mean, I'm just very much in touch with my emotions, and
Yeah.
so it was kind of like, is there something wrong with me if I'm not crying at all? Especially because my first postpartum experience with my first son was so wildly different.
Mm,
So I'm really excited to get into it with you about birth
yeah.
stories because the stark contrast between my first and my second
Yeah.
pregnancy, birth, and postpartum and all the things is wild, but I was so filled with tears and crying all the time for that first year, 2 years after my first son.
Mm,
And so this time around is different. It's a lot more I would say intact and whole and healthy this time around. And I feel so much more grounded in my identity,
mm,
especially that's a big, big one is my
mm.
identity. Because I'm not navigating new motherhood. I've done
Yeah.
this once. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That must be so cool to recognize like the difference. And I'm definitely excited to get into your birth and postpartum and pregnancy experiences too. But I do want to go back in time a little bit first. And oh, well, I guess you didn't answer the question of what phase of
Oh
life
yeah.
you're in, but I think we know you're in motherhood, but share a little bit about that. Like, what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, so I'm definitely deep in the motherhood. I guess yeah, definitely deep in motherhood. And I'm navigating it as to really like what are the limitations of motherhood? That's been kind of a theme. It's like, what are the limitations? And then like, am I making up limitations? Like what am I choosing?
Mm,
And I
mm,
know that motherhood really is all about a deep focus. You have to have deep, deep focus.
mm,
And if you really want to have something be a part of your mothering experience, you have to really prioritize it.
mm,
And I've really had to learn how to do that. And I love how motherhood has really pushed me to become a better version of myself because of the deep focus required in order to do that, in order to make sure everyone's needs are met as well as my own,
Mm.
and be really intentional about all of that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I love the intention behind it. Like you just said, like be really intentional about all that. And I love the questions you're asking yourself too. They're just like what does this mean for me? And like,
Mm.
does this have to be this way? Or like how can I experience this,
Yeah.
differently? And I mean, I love seeing your Instagram because you always share stuff about like how you're mothering and like what's up for you in motherhood and your insights from being a mother. And I'm just like, wow, like she's really just, I don't know, it's inspirational to see you just learn so much from your own experience and then like be able to sort of like alchemize that into wisdom that you can share with
Mm.
others. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you. I feel that so much. I feel like that's really where my kind of expertise lies, is in this self understanding and making sense
Mhm.
of what I know and my own experience. And it feels like it makes my own experience feel really complete when I've done that alchemy and then I'm able to share with people. It makes me feel like I'm contributing in one of the ways that I can as
Yeah.
a mother, which a lot of it really is all about the children, typically, especially for me. That's just my own experience. That's not how it is for everyone across the board, but it's definitely for
Yeah.
me, as I'm just like so in it.
Yeah, I see that and I love it. I think it's so cool. Yeah, well, I love to, as I mentioned before we hit record, I love to get into women's first bleed stories just as like this anchor of like when you entered into womanhood. Um,
Mm.
I think it's really powerful to reflect, and some women remember more than others, but I would love to hear like what do you remember from that time?
Yeah, here I wrote a little piece that I'd love to like maybe kind of read from.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Let me find it.
Take your
Okay.
time.
Okay, so I think my relationship to my blood and my cramps was really purely physical because of kind of the way that my mother introduced it to me as so matter of fact. So
Mhm.
I definitely got like a really good understanding of how my body worked and of how, like, what to expect and how to be gentle with myself. And she really did explain to me, like, this is how you might feel emotionally, this is
Mm.
how you might be feeling physically. But it was very much just physical. There was no, and emotional, but there was
Mm.
no like um reverence around it at all. And it was very much like, okay, like this is something that it's like a problem that needs to be solved,
Right.
basically. And those are the hormones. And I didn't understand any of the other parts of my cycle. It was just the bleed. And then, like, right before you bleed, you're going to be really sad and might be a little bit angry. Like, that was about it. Um, but I think a lot of that is it kind of, it also really influenced a lot of the other things that she shared with me in terms of like, the sex talk or anything else. It was just very matter of fact, just hear the facts, and kind of I sensed this emotional removal from her, where she did not like, I don't know, she didn't I could tell that she didn't feel comfortable with it.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, it's interesting to reflect on like especially well, one thing that comes up is like you only knew about the bleed and like the pre-bleed, like the premenstrual time. And I was
Mhm.
just I was just talking to someone else on an interview yesterday and I was like, yeah, I mean, I used to have no idea that I was like always in a cycle. Like that
Mhm.
information didn't come in until I was in my 20s, you know?
Yes.
Like and I'm 28 now and it wasn't until I was like 23 or something, 22, 23 that I was like, "Oh, I'm like always in this." And it was just,
Yeah.
like the knowledge that like it's not just like we randomly bleed once a month.
Yeah. Yeah, like that it is. There's other things going on. There's the seasons. All of
Mhm.
those beautiful illustrations that really do like kind of give us some insight as to the energy of each piece. It's so nice to
Oh yeah.
understand that now and to like hold that space for myself with those seasons and that understanding. Because without it, it really is, it's just, it feels almost random, and you can victimize yourself a little more too without the understanding that, you know, each season has a phase, each phase has a season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the seasonal lens is so beautiful because like we understand. I mean, if you live somewhere that has seasons, I guess if you live in like a tropical environment, it might be a little more confusing to you. But like if you know the seasons, it's really easy to understand like, oh, if you're in your inner summer, your ovulatory
Mhm.
phase, like you do what you do in summer, like you're outward, it's warm, you're swimming, you're hanging out, you're barbecuing, like you're doing all of those things. And like inner winter, we know it's like cocoon time, menstruation.
Yeah.
It's like it just helps. And also, I think the seasonal lens is really sweet. And I imagine that's a really sweet thing to teach daughters.
Mm,
Because like it just makes you feel magical. It's like, oh,
yeah.
well, like we are Earth, you know? And that's like that's the kind of crux of it. I think that's so beautiful.
Mm, yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And our bodies really are. We really are Earth.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I love that I'm able to kind of envision it that way now because up until I was in my 20s and up until this model had been introduced to me and I was able to remember myself in this way and my cycle in this way, I was so removed from it. I mean, I think in the ways that the world was shown to me and explained to me, it kind of felt like I was being told that we were aliens just visiting Earth and that we didn't really belong here, and we shouldn't focus on the Earth. The Earth isn't like anything, it's just where we live. A lot of just disconnect, so much
Mhm.
disconnect. And
Mhm.
since coming back to this place of being connected, it feels so much more, I feel so much more held and, like you said, magical and mystical, and I love feeling that way. I feel like all women really do love feeling
Oh yeah.
mystical and like just filled with divinity and connectedness. It feels
Mhm.
really good to be there, and without that, it's just so like dull. It's so dull.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, and we are so mystical and magical as women. I just think about like we have this cycle, and our cycle is like the creative process of the universe. And that's, I mean, like we have that literally within us, like in our bodies, in an organ that can bring like
Mhm.
life to this earth from the cosmos. It's like, it's so wild. It's like so mystical and so grounded at the same time. It's like really both, you know, like it's nature
Yes.
and it's beyond our understanding. And I love that you've been able to bring that into your awareness. And I think it's interesting, like your experience of your mom being really just like matter of fact about it. Like that is kind of that conditioning that a lot of us receive is like the understanding. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like the understanding of something incredible, but like we're being explained it to us like in like a mundane
Mm,
way. And there, of course, like is a mundane side to the cycle. Like there's hormones and there's, like practical things that you feel and experience, but it's only half the story, right? Like the other half
yeah.
of the story is like the incredible journey into yourself that like living as a woman is.
Yes. Yes. And the joy of it, it's so important to like, I feel, pass on to our daughters the joy of being a woman and the joy of experiencing womanhood through our cycle in this way. Because yeah, yeah. It just feels more
Yeah,
whole and complete that way.
totally. So when in your journey did you start, sort of questioning like this just half version of the cycle that you were taught? Was that before your first pregnancy or?
Oh, I wish it was. I wish it was before my first pregnancy. That would have been amazing. It wasn't until I think my son was 2, so I must have been about
Mhm.
24. Yeah, about 24. And right around then, that's when I like fully was open to the information coming in, and I heard it from you. I heard it from a couple of other people and other women talking about it, and it felt so cool and like exciting and to
Mhm.
to see it through this lens. And so I just went all in. I was just like, this is amazing. This is so cool. And I remember kind of just making it a really big deal for myself at that point in time. But
Mm,
before then, it just the amount of beauty that was so I was just living so unconscious to is
mm.
astounding. And so when I kind of got it, I was like, wow, how much different would my birth have been with this information?
Whoa.
Like that's a whole book written and closed out that I didn't even get to have that information
Mm,
to hold space for myself and understanding and love for myself. Like with that information, I know that I would have been so much more gentle with my body and my heart.
mm.
And it also it made me so not angry, but like filled with fire to share
Yeah.
it so that other people didn't miss out on that like I did.
Mm,
And so much so that I was like ready to just like not yeah, I don't know. I was ready to just be like, please, like just know this. I don't care how cringe it is. Just you need to know. You need to know that this is important and this is so wonderful and special and it doesn't have to be just this mundane thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. So what, I'm so curious about your first pregnancy then. Like, how did that drop into your life?
Yeah. Okay. So my pregnancy with my first son, it was really beautiful and I really loved it, but it was also the most drastic life change that I had ever moved through. I could just feel my brain literally being rewired. And I remember feeling not bipolar, but like psychotic almost. Like it was so
Mm,
much. And I know that a lot of that is because, I was only 22, almost 23.
yeah, you were young.
And yeah, and so I know our brains don't fully develop until
Hmm.
we're like
25,
25.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, like our
Yeah, I bet that was
prefrontal.
wild.
Yes, yes. And so I think I felt it so I could feel it in my brain, the amount of things that were changing.
Mm,
And it was just so big. So I was 22 when I was pregnant or became pregnant, and beside what was occurring within me, like biologically, my identity was shredded because of how unplanned it all was.
mm,
First pregnancy with my partner, and also, unfortunately, how unwelcome my baby was in the community that I had established for my whole life.
mm,
Um,
mm.
it was really, really rough because I had only known one community my whole life, which was my church.
Oh,
Um, I was raised Baptist Christian, and
wow.
so I knew every single person in my church. My parents were very, very involved. I was very, very involved. It was a whole beautiful community of people. Um, but I mean, I had only been dating my partner for 3 months when we
Whoa.
conceived our son. And but he has been supportive from the very, very beginning. He promised me that he was committed to our family and that he would support my values of attachment parenting. And he said that really whatever I wanted, he would support. So in
Mm,
those, because it was really only 3 months and we had known each other since we were 16, but we were just friends and it was like hardly even talking kind of friends. Like we just kind of knew
mhm.
each other. And when when we started dating, it was really nice. I kind of like left my parents' house a little bit, but not really. Like all my stuff was there. I was technically still living there, but I was just kind of at his apartment. And we did not expect this at all.
Yeah.
It was very identity shattering, to say the least.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like motherhood is identity shattering to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
and so then to be 22, to be like having these thoughts of like, like you're kind of leaving your parents' house, then you're having to grapple with like, is this community being there for me? Like figuring out like a whole new version of self. That's just, whew,
Yeah.
it's a lot at 22.
Yeah, yeah. And if we had decided to just get married right away, at what, 3 months into our dating relationship, that would have solved a lot of problems, but we also just felt like that didn't really fit our truth. It wasn't
Mhm.
something that we were ready for, and we
Mm.
both said, "If we're gonna do something like that, I wanna have a lot more thought, I want it to be very purposeful, very intentional, I don't want it to just be something that we do to appease the people
Yeah.
around us, it's too sacred for that."
Yeah.
Um, so we did not do that, but what happened was about, I would say, 2/3 into the way of my pregnancy with my first son, my partner Austin, he bought us a house and we
Wow.
moved in together, and it was crazy how quickly so much just went together. The amount of things that had to come into place for our life to really unfold in the way that we wanted to is just I am just filled with gratitude every time that I really think about our story. This was all back in 2019, so this is all pre-pandemic, right? This is all
Mhm.
pre everything that's crazy that's happened in the world recently.
Yeah.
Um, but this is before the housing market changed. Like, we are young people. I don't know that we would have a house right now that we own if we
Wow.
hadn't bought a house right when we did. And really, what would have pushed us to do that except for
Other
this
than, yeah.
baby? Like,
Whoa.
we would
Yeah.
probably be stuck in renting for a lot longer if we had just stuck there. So that's a really beautiful hidden blessing, synchronicity that unfolded for us, and,
Yeah.
um,
Gosh, I mean, that's just like, I think about that often, like the little things that happen in life that sort of, in the moment, it seems like forces us to make a decision, but that it's actually that was what you needed to make the decision that's like in your highest alignment. And so I love that you
yes.
can like look back and see that.
Yes. Yeah, and I felt gratitude in the moment of when it was happening and when we were house hunting and we picked this house and
So cute.
everything was moving so quickly, but to now have this expanded understanding of just how, like, everything really was working in our favor, and for our highest timelines it to unfold. It was just, yeah, it's beautiful to look back on that, and it's just, yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm. So how did you feel during that pregnancy? Like what was the like internal feeling?
So the emotional theme, I would say, was very much like so raw. I was crying all the time. I felt a lot of adrenaline rushes, a lot
Mm,
of adrenaline rushes, very like uh jittery, um anxiety ridden,
mm,
just very upheaved. So much had changed, not even just, that I was going through all these chemical changes in my brain and body, because that's crazy alone. But
yeah.
then my community, everything changed. So, so much changed. Um, yeah, so, so much changed. So I went down so many rabbit holes too concerning nutrition and how to navigate the hospital setting
Oh
and
wow.
injection injury and human
Hmm.
trafficking.
Mm.
I just was like, as soon as I found out that I was pregnant and that we were going to keep this baby, we were going to start a family, we were committed to our family. I remember the very first thing that I searched on Google, like, what should I be feeding my body? What kind of nutritional
Mm.
needs do I have now? And I started like learning about all these things and just learning about, what was it, like things that are bioavailable to us, like foods that
Yeah.
actually have bioavailable nutrients, not just foods that have those nutrients, but the
Yes.
bioavailable things, and how to make those nutrients kind of
Wow.
really be utilized by the body by pairing it with other nutrients. And
Wow.
I loved nutrition for a long time to begin with, but this was a whole new aspect of it. But, I mean, aside from that, that is beautiful, but
Hmm.
I feel like the theme was really just, like, fear porn. I
Mm.
was just so f afraid, and I was like, "This is okay. It's okay to be afraid because I'm getting ready
Mhm.
for war." That was my mindset, unfortunately. It was
Oh.
like, I'm gonna be a warrior at the hospital when I give birth to my baby. I'm gonna be a warrior, and I'm gonna make sure that no one hurts my baby and that nobody, nobody hurts him with injections. Nobody, gets him. And just terrible, awful stuff that I was filling my brain um, with the excuse of, oh, protecting my child.
Mm.
And because I took that mindset, I think I did maybe a lot more damage than I needed to. I mean, really don't need to do any damage, but um, yeah, I thought that that was the answer, that I could
Well,
just like fill my brain with all this information. And really, I mean, I was so tender. I did not need to do all of that.
yeah. I mean, it makes me tear up a little because it's just like with the culture we are in, like in the system we're in, like new mothers, especially a young new mother who is like trying to figure out like I think it probably came from such a pure place. Like you want to protect this being, like your mama energy came in like
Yeah.
really fiercely, you know? And I think that's so beautiful. I mean, even in just the way you were like, I need to nourish myself, you know? Like,
Mm.
but then to like if we can only expand when we've had a blueprint for expansion, right? And so like this lens of like, okay, well, you have a baby in the hospital, so this is what I have to do to get what I want in that environment. Like that's where you are
Yes.
until you're like, wait, but like what if this wasn't even the environment?
Yes.
And so I think it's like really admirable to like even go in as a warrior, but it's like, yeah, like women shouldn't have to do that, especially in their pregnancy when they're so sensitive and open and vulnerable and like your nervous system is important. And yeah, gosh, just so much tenderness and love for that younger version of you who was just like figuring it out.
Oh my goodness, so much because she just wanted the best for her baby.
Yeah.
She really did. And the way that we frame things really does change our vibration and
Yeah.
how we move, like you said, like if that wasn't even the setting, and I didn't even know that that was an option,
Yeah.
was like, well, I can't afford a midwife, so like a in-home midwife, so there's no way I'm going to do a home birth. Just, that this is what also just this is what you do. You go to the OB, you do
Yeah.
your things, you get your ultrasounds, which I didn't do really any with my second baby. And I also received my last injection too. I got I think it was, I don't even know which one it was, but while I was pregnant, I got it,
Whoa.
right? That was the last one I got. And then after that, I was like, never again.
You're like, no more of that.
No more for me or anyone else in my house. Um, I, yeah, yeah.
And what was that birth? So you did birth in the hospital. Is there something, do you want to share about that birth or not really?
I do. I have
Yeah.
so much to share about that
Yeah.
birth. Um, So much to share. So I wrote up a really elaborate birth plan and I intended to dodge as much medical intervention as possible. And I spent a lot of time, like hours, putting together this birth plan. And I had a doula as well. So
Mm,
that was cool. It was one of my
that's good.
longtime friends' mothers. So I was homeschooled my whole life, right? And this was one of my friends who was also homeschooled, her mother. So I had
Mm,
known her for a long time. And she had just begun her doula business. So she blessed me by serving me without charging me. I think I was her first
mm,
ever client. And it was
so
so
sweet.
sweet. And so I knew her, I knew her,
Yeah.
and she's so sweet, and she has this deep like spiritual connectedness that I was really familiar with the more evangelical side of things. And so I did draw a
Mm,
lot of um I would say just comfort from her. It was really, really
yeah.
wonderful. And I did have her support throughout my 40-hour labor and a few postpartum visits as well. And she actually also rescued my placenta for me so that I could bring it home and say goodbye. And
I
I
love
also,
the term rescue.
well, yeah, they make it so impossible to like get
So
that thing
weird.
out of there.
So
They
weird.
they want it. They
Oh,
want
they
that
want it. They for
space. They
sure want
do.
it because that's money.
Yeah, so much. I
Yeah.
can't remember how much, but it's thousands.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so she rescued it for me, and I also ended up turning my placenta into little smoothie cubes, so I could take like a little tiny
Cute.
smoothie cube piece and like I don't know if it really helped with anything, but I wanted to do it, and so I did
I love
it.
that. Well, I think it's like the connection. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
really what it's just like to honor that part of you and your baby in whatever way you decide to honor it, I think is like the real magic in it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and this time around with the second birth, I did not consume my placenta. But I did when I wanted to bury it too, but it was really hard because it was like the end of November when I was ready and the ground was frozen. So I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't know. But anyway, so I was so basically here's how the cascade of things flowed from the end of my pregnancy and the beginning of my birth. I was 10 days past my due date, quote unquote due date.
Mm.
And I was so tired of being pregnant at this point that I agreed to the pressure I was getting to just get induced. And what followed was like the most excruciating long suffering I've experienced to date. It was the worst I've ever felt in my life. I checked into the hospital and they gave me like a Foley bulb induction,
Oh my God.
um, which you must be familiar with what that
Yeah,
is.
that's terrible.
Yeah, it makes everything feel so like sore,
Yeah.
internally sore. Just
Well, they're like just pumping
ugh.
you open. It's like kind of wild that that's a real thing that people do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just I don't even want to think about it for too long.
Yeah.
But it was so uncomfortable and I wasn't able to really rest at that point. And so um I was kind of trying to keep labor going and then it wasn't really going and so they kind of gave me some Pitocin and I labored on Pitocin with the Foley bulb without any pain medication for 33 hours and I did not sleep and I
Oh my
couldn't
God.
sit or lay down. I was just like leaning on my partner, on Austin, bless his heart.
Mm.
And he was just the most amazing partner, especially for being hardly even with me for a full, what, year at this point. He is just like
Oh.
holding me and there with me. He stayed awake the whole time, and my doula was there
Wow.
too. But um, it was a really long time. And so around that 30-hour point, they informed me that if I did not take the epidural so that I could like get some rest, I would probably have to get a C-section because
Oh my God.
they said I wouldn't have the energy to push. So I was like, all right. And I got the epidural and then I got to sleep for about like 4 hours. And then when I woke up, they were like, all right, you're 10 centimeters, you're ready to push. And so I pushed for 4 hours, which really should not be how long you push for if you're actually ready.
If you're ready.
Um, but then I did that and I had my baby. I also had an episiotomy as well,
Oh
despite
God.
me screaming no. I literally was like screaming no at the doctor. I was like, don't do it, don't do it. He was like, you're tearing
Oh,
this wrong direction. You're gonna be like so hurt. Like you need
oh
this.
my
And I was
God,
like,
Sarah.
no. And so my Austin was like, she said no. Like was like so angry with him. And he was like, all right, all right. And then he like was basically talking to Austin. He was like, listen, like if I don't do this, there's gonna be this problem. Like we really need to. And so he agreed and I agreed. And I
Mm.
obviously I didn't feel anything. I just knew that it wasn't the best in my best interest. And so it was really sad
God.
that that had to
No, I mean
happen.
that part really hits me because it's like, I mean, God, like when we think about this, when we think about a woman screaming no to a man doing something to her body and then he continues to do it, in any
Mm-hmm.
other context other than the hospital, that's assault.
It's assault.
But then it's somehow
Yes.
in the hospital, it's like, well, that's the best thing. And
Ooh.
oh yeah, it makes me cringe. And I'm just so sorry. Like that is so violating. And the other part of it is like, it for sure wasn't necessary because we know that like tears heal so much better when they happen
Yeah.
versus like a man-made cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't know that at the time. I thought
Of
I had
course. Yeah.
educated myself as the best. I did so
Mhm.
much studying, and this man was looking at me like, if you don't do this, you're gonna tear all the way like to the side of your thigh, like a really an abnormal tear was what he was explaining to me. And obviously I had been awake for like so long. I'm exhausted.
Well, yeah, you're in such a vulnerable, like otherworldly experience.
Yes, yes. And I didn't even have the words for that yet because I hadn't been awakened to the divine within all of this. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't even really able to hold space for that birth, labor land kind of area for
Yeah.
myself. It was just so like physical, matter of fact, still at this point. Um, Now, it's also important to note two things that made this experience even more mind-bending. So,
Mm,
at the beginning of my intake, when the nurse was asking me questions, they're just like, "All right, let me tell them," yeah," like they're just so removed.
mm,
And she asked me if I had ever considered taking my life or if I've ever dealt with depression and anxiety. To which I answered honestly. I was like, yes, I had dealt with depression and some ideations a few years
mhm.
prior to being pregnant, but and I had been on depression medication and I was seeing a therapist. Um, but not currently during that time because I had felt very healed from that for about 3 years. But okay, so then due to a misunderstanding of policy, as if their policies aren't ridiculous enough, there was a misunderstanding of policy. Um, where was it? Oh, she asked me so very mechanically every hour on the hour, Sarah, are you thinking about hurting yourself or others? Do you feel like you are a danger to yourself? So every hour for 40 hours, they would look at me and they'd be like, "You need to answer this question." And they were so mean about it. They were like,
Oh my
"Brr,"
God.
like and like if I was contracting and like breathing through a contraction, unmedicated, mind you, on freaking Pitocin, half naked, wearing their dumb hospital gown, they're like, "You need to answer me right now." And I'm like, "Oh, hold on. Like I'm moving through this thing." And then I'm
You've
like,
got to be kidding
"No."
me.
Yeah, I wish
I've
I
never heard
was.
of that.
It was absolutely insane. I think
That
that
is
actually
wild.
it could have been grounds for me to sue from my understanding and what I've been told. Um, I haven't pursued that because it doesn't feel right to me, but
Yeah.
it was just crazy. And the nurses were literally yelling at me to answer my response. If my response was
Oh my
delayed, they would
God.
they would like yell at me.
No.
It was crazy and just I was
Like
so
complete, like
vulnerable.
complete lack of understanding of like what the birth process entails, right? That you're like in something and they think that you could just like stop what is happening within you and answer their ridiculous, oh my God. I mean, the policies, it's like, oh gosh, I mean, I'm clearly getting on my soapbox, but it's like the policies are so wild because it just takes the humanity out of it. Like that you are a real human, not just like this number statistic thing.
Yes. And I feel like birth workers in general, like if you're working a 40-hour, let's say 30 to 40 hour, which isn't even necessarily completely full time, right? You're constantly in the birth space for 40 hours a week. You're gonna become numb to
Yeah.
birth. And
Yeah.
it's not gonna be this beautiful thing anymore. It's gonna be very like, okay, I have to go to work, I have to do this thing. And then it's just, if it becomes so mundane. And I feel like that's just not it's not helpful. It's not what
Yeah.
it should be. Because for this birthing woman, it's like the biggest thing she's ever experienced, or
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that she'll experience. Doesn't matter how many times she's given birth before. Like this is life altering.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And it and so all of this. Oh wait, there's one other crazy thing that happened.
Mhm.
So okay, this one's another crazy one. You're gonna flip. So
Oh,
okay.
God.
I have to laugh now looking back at these things, but um so this was a birthing center that I was giving birth at. So it wasn't just a hospital, it was a birthing
Okay.
center. They had really low C-section rates. It was all designed by labor and delivery nurses. It was a really beautiful facility and they had a birthing tub and I was very excited to use it when we had done the walkthrough and just
Yeah, of
we
course.
saw it and I was really excited. They told me that I couldn't give birth in the water probably, but I could labor in the water. But okay, so then the midwife that was on that I had seen throughout the practice, she informed me when it was time for me, when I said, okay, I'm ready to use the birth tub to kind of speed things up and get some relief. She informed me that I could only use it if I was willing to be observed by a group of medical students.
What?
Yes. So she was like, you can only use it if you're willing. Like, we have a group of medical students and we would love for them to like sit in and like observe you. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I'm not really like, I don't want that.
But you can only use it if, I mean, that's pure manipulation.
Yeah, and like she had led me up to it. She was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then like when it was time and I was in labor, she was like, "You can't use it unless you do this."
So yeah, like
And
if the medical students are not there, then it's like not safe. Like what?
well, I think it was just because they were there that day and she was like trying to make use of it for like academic purposes. And I was like, "I am not.
And
I'm
so she
not."
wasn't gonna let you use it if you said no.
That's what she said. And so I was like, "Well, okay, I guess I won't be using it." And then afterwards she was like, "Okay, you can use it." And then they ended up letting me use it. But just the fact that
Oh
she
my God.
tried to do that to me was like ridiculous. And like there I am too, like I'm wearing this very revealing hospital gown.
Yeah.
And I don't want like even if I was fully clothed, I don't want people staring at me while I'm like trying to move through contractions. It is like
No.
it has this such intimate
Oh yeah.
like feeling to it. It's sad. It's not sexual, but like it has that raw vulnerability right there. Like when you if you're really going to
Yeah.
be with those contractions, you are moaning. You are
Hmm.
like in it, and like no,
No,
not in
yeah. I
front
mean,
of
it
me.
is like, it's not, I don't know. Some people like do really believe like birth is sexual. And in a way, I get that because it's like, it's
It
the same
is.
hormones as like when you have sex. It's the same like sort of like, I mean, it's the same energy, right? It's like one way gets the baby in, the other one gets the baby out. And so it is very weird to imagine like a bunch of strangers around you as you do that and like how your body would respond to that. Um,
Mm,
and I mean, it's just really sad that that's what this woman was saying to you. Because to me, it's like to work in birth, you need to love women and respect women. And that shows a total lack of love and respect, that behavior from her.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, just her overall vibe changed so much from when we were in like office visits to the birthing center setting. It was
Yeah.
so different. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, oh, okay. So I did give birth though, and I did not have a C-section, right?
Good.
So that was really beautiful. I did not have a C-section.
Thank goodness.
And yeah, so like that was good. And then I also just was recovering from all of the other things and recovery went pretty well. Oh, actually, one thing that happened, it was not very good. So
Mm.
2 days. So I had gotten home. They had me using a catheter because I had a what is it? An epidural, right? So you can't get up, you
Yeah.
can't feel anything. So they
Yeah,
had me
you
using a
have to,
catheter, which
yeah.
sounds so horrible, but I didn't really feel anything, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But because of the catheter use, I learned that if you use a catheter for too long, it can actually kind of temporarily impair your what is it? Your reflex. I can't remember what the reflex is called, but it's to release
Mm,
pee or to hold it
mm,
in.
yeah.
And because of that, I wasn't able to relieve myself. So I hadn't peed naturally. So they let me go. I stayed in the hospital for maybe like 2, 3 days. And then I hadn't peed without a catheter before I left the hospital. So they sent me home, not even knowing if I could actually pee.
Oh my God.
And I'm home and I'm just trying to like navigate breastfeeding and loving on my baby and like all the things. And so they sent me home and I was like trying to do all these navigating things with my baby and just get used to everything, like breastfeeding and all of that. And I noticed that I was just feeling a lot of pressure and I couldn't pee. And so I tried to go to the bathroom and I couldn't. And it was at the point where my bladder was so full that I was in like pain. Like I was cramping. It was really bad. And so my I was literally on the toilet, like nursing my child, like screaming in pain,
Oh my
so
God.
pain. And my partner was home. Thankfully, he had like 2 weeks. Um, 2 weeks home with us and he just drove me to the OB. Like I called them on the way and I was like, I need help. Like I need help right now. And they let me right in and they basically used a like one of those temporary catheter things just to help me relieve the
Mm.
bladder right away. And the amount of urine in my body, they were like, "We are so glad that your bladder didn't explode."
Oh
Like
my God.
That's how much. Insane. And so after that, thankfully, I was something clicked for me and it was fine. But just all of that together is just a very intense, like what, 5 days? A very intense experience.
So how was the rest of your postpartum?
The rest of my postpartum was pretty good, but I d so pretty good I say, but like really not. I
Mm,
so I struggled with breastfeeding really hard because my letdowns were laced with rage and feelings of anger towards my son,
mm,
which made me feel so confused and so guilty. And I only
mm,
lasted about 3 months with that because I couldn't bear it. But I did learn since then that the use of Pitocin in birth actually disrupts the hormonal dance that leads to breastfeeding.
yeah.
And so it's quite common for mothers who use Pitocin in their birth to struggle with literally just let down rage. So I would be sitting there like with my sweet baby, like trying to give him milk, and then the milk would come and it was just like this downward, like, oh, why do I feel so like depressed, anxious, angry, mad, like hopeless, broken, like all of these thoughts going through my brain. Like, why do I feel this every single time? So it wasn't physically painful, but it was just insane. And
Mm,
I didn't know about this. I didn't know that that was normal. I just thought that I was bad. And then also to boot, it was even harder for me because I thought, I had small breasts, and so I was like, maybe this is just I'm not able to breastfeed. Maybe that's just what
mm,
it is, and I didn't have a lot of information on that. But so my son was born in September of 2019, and I went through a tremendous cycle of postpartum depression and anxiety, and it reached its worst point about 5, 6 months postpartum during the pandemic when everyone was on
yeah,
lockdown.
of course.
And I had only just started to feel a little bit better. I remember I was taking like fitness classes and I was like
Mhm.
going out of the house again. I was like doing all these things. And I was at that fitness class when the news of it broke and it was like, okay, everyone, 2 weeks to flatten the line or something.
Oh my God, the 2 weeks.
Right? I don't think we'll ever forget that. I think like it was 10 days and then it was 2 weeks. Anyway, um, so I only just started to feel better, and then it all began. And then for all of 2020 and most of 2021, I really felt my lowest. I was really struggling. I was having suicidal ideations, and
Mm,
then I was also hopeful and filled with happiness at times. But then I would be so low that it scared me, and I was questioning if I was bipolar during that time.
mm,
It was insane. My spiritual journey had also taken a drastic turn, and I completely shunned and turned away from Christianity. And I
mm.
went the opposite way to the metaphysical and the witchy, and I was loving that. So that was really fun. And I was
Yeah.
seeing the divine in all the places that the church had told me not to look. And I also did a really cool, intense Reiki training
Wow.
online, and I became a Reiki master.
Mm,
And
mm,
yeah, I wanted very much to welcome in that aspect of my identity again that I had given up when I decided to stay home with my son. And that meant, community and making my own money again. And so I was
mm,
feeling a lot of different types of ways. I was feeling hopeful and like I wanted to be of service to people, but at the same time, I was also just so broken. I was so broken. I had lost so much, and like friends too. I don't even think I got into that with you
mm.
about the people. I don't even know if it needs to come through, but the people that I lost along the way because I wasn't married when we decided to start our family. So all of that I think impacted my postpartum.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. I think that from what I've heard from a lot of mothers, it's like every postpartum really like transforms you and changes you. But it sounds like you got like quite a hefty dose of that with this first pregnancy, that like everything changed. But I'm hearing the beauty in it that like I don't know, it's so hard because it's hard to tell someone like, oh, there's so much beauty at your darkest moment. And so when I hear you had this like really intense postpartum depression around lockdown time, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
that's a really intense thing to go through. But it also sounds like that was like the fertile ground from which you then like began becoming the woman you are today. And like that's a really beautiful thing.
Yes, just like everything had burned down, and there was
Yeah.
that beautiful volcanic ash, fertile
Mhm.
soil to be, like
Yeah.
you were saying. It's so true, and I do see that now, especially because who knows who we would be if all of these hard experiences in the world didn't impact us in the ways that they did.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, yeah.
So when did you like when did you come to understand that like your birth experience wasn't great? Or like did you always know that?
I did not know that. I
Okay.
mean, I kind of knew that like a lot of things were straight up bad, like some of the treatment that I received in the hospital setting, as we discussed. But
Yeah.
um, overall, I was like, okay, this wasn't bad, and I really did, I think, for my own sanity, kind of find the silver lining so that I
Yeah.
could like just feel,
Self-protection.
yes, a lot of it was self-protection, a lot of it was like, okay, like everything was fine, like I'm fine, everything. And I also kind of lied to myself too, like, oh, the doctor really needed to do that episiotomy. I'm safe, like
Mhm.
because of this doctor, right? The doctor saved me.
Yeah,
Who
for
knows what
sure.
would have happened if I was at home? Like that whole narrative. But I don't think it fully landed for me that like things could be better and like nothing, it didn't have to be like that. And I could have been perfectly fine if until maybe my son was like 3.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I just it was so much disconnect and so much illusion that I kind of just wasn't ready to give up yet because I really needed something in that to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and that's like what we do, right? Like we create or we like we make sense of things in the way that we need to until we have space to open up and like get to the root and to the truth of something. Um
Mm.
and so how much like how much longer after you kind of come to this realization do you then decide to get pregnant again?
So this is I'm trying to think. So my son was 4. This was 2022. No, it was 2020 in February, I believe. I can't, don't quote me on that, but we were right around then when I felt really, really good. I had been nannying, I was bringing in my own money again, but I was
Mm,
also really like home with my son,
yeah.
and things were feeling like really good. I had a lot of friends. I had established myself in so many ways, and I felt really good, and we felt like we were ready to welcome in another child. And
Mhm.
so I had been tracking my cycle, and I knew exactly where I was, and I was like, we want to do this. And literally like 10 minutes after we decided, well, not 10 minutes, I would say like a few days after, I was like, okay, I'm ovulating, let's go ahead, let's do it. And we conceived right there. It was the first, I know exactly the day and the hour that he was conceived, which is so cool.
That's so epic. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so cool. And I mean, this is before I learned that you can kind of sway the sex of your child depending on where you are in
Oh
your
yeah.
ovulation cycle. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I really would have liked a girl, but I didn't know that you can kind of just wait until a little bit farther along in your ovulation cycle for your pH balance to become a little more acidic, and then
Yeah,
can
I've
kind
heard
of make
that
it,
too.
yeah. So, but it was like, I was like, I'm ovulating, let's do it right now. And so it was like, boy.
Well, I love it too because it's like it's so like your first pregnancy was this like kind of surprise and the second one is this like extreme intention. It's like so different.
Yes. Yes, and then so many synchronicities leading up to that. Like my last period that I received, my last bleed,
Mm.
I is so funny. I like thought it was gonna be my last bleed for some reason. I just was like, well, I feel like this might be my last bleed before we get pregnant. I feel like this could happen. And then it was funny because I was cleaning my menstrual cup on a pot of water. I was like boiling the water to like clean
Yeah.
it. And I let the water go down, and so I melted this cup to the bottom of my pot. And so that was it. I didn't need my cup
You
after
didn't
that.
need it anymore.
It was just that was it. And I haven't used one since too. So that was what, 2 years ago? Almost
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Wow.
And so that was cool. That was another synchronicity. And then I don't remember, there was something else, but I can't remember. There's all kinds of cool things where it was like, this is very intentional this time around, and you feel ready, you're choosing this. Your bodies are healthy, like everything is a lot more established.
Mm.
And I just felt really sure of myself too.
Wow.
And it was this time around where I was like, I am doing a home birth. I'm not going to the hospital for this birth.
Yeah.
And I was talking with you right around this time.
I remember I was just thinking of our voice messages.
Yes, and I was asking you your opinion and your knowledge and your expertise surrounding birth workers, and should I hire this midwife? I don't remember all the details of our conversations. I don't know if, what do you remember anything
I
specific?
think you were like, what questions should I ask a potential midwife? I feel like that was
Mm.
like a big thing you were asking me. And it was interesting because if this was like s- early 2023, was that when that was kind of happening?
Yeah, this was probably in the early summer of
Okay, yeah. So
2023.
I had just finished the Radical Birth Keeper school from Free Birth
Yes.
Society. So I was like fully in that world at that point where I was like, well, you should ask a midwife what she thinks about women birthing on their own. And if she's supportive of that, you should ask her, like, what does she think of free birth? Because that will tell a lot of whether she actually trusts women or not. I'm pretty sure that's what I said to you.
Yes, yes. And I interviewed one midwife and I was like, "Oh, I feel like I like her." And then you told me that, and I asked the midwife and she was like, "Oh no, 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 no." And funny enough, I had a friend who also had used her as a midwife, and she was really disappointed with how the birth unfolded and how she had been
Wow.
transferred to a hospital because of something with this midwife that I had interviewed. And I was like, all right, well, I don't want to make this financial contribution if I'm just going to, investment, if I'm not even going to have her support. And I don't want anyone else to be in control of my body. And so
Yep.
the biggest difference I took, oh, this pregnancy, this birth, this postpartum was so beautiful, so different than the first one because I had also read, I also took the Free Birth Society course on
Oh,
how
the
to free
course,
birth,
yeah.
the complete guide to free birth.
Yeah.
And I also was reading some of Yolanda Norris Clark's books. I read, what is it? The Portal. So good. I need to get the hard copy still, but I read the
Yeah.
digital version, and I think that was also before she edited it too. But
Yeah.
anyways, um, I took this stance of being, instead of a warrior, I was a goddess.
Mm,
That was the stance, and I was like, a goddess is indestructible. She can do anything.
yeah.
And my birth plan was so vastly different. I still did what I typically do, which is I write out all my things and I'm like, here's a sheet of paper in case you, my partner, who does whatever I say anyway, in case you need to know like why I'm telling you this. And I just was
Cute.
really interested in like completely educating myself so I could be prepared for anything that may come my way in this birth. And
Yeah.
a lot of my community and family, they were a little bit nervous at first, but I would
Yeah.
say, up to like 2 months before I gave birth, everyone in my community was like, "She's doing this and you can do it." And that was a
Mm.
resounding thing. My mother, my father, his parents, all of our friends, everyone was like, "You can do it. You can do it."
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
yeah, yeah, so such a stark contrast.
Yeah.
And I
Well, it's
had a
probably too
friend.
because you were in your authority and they felt that.
Yes. Yes. I was like, I am taking, oh, and that was the other thing is self-responsibility. I was like, I am
Yeah.
fully taking all responsibility for everything. I am completely doing all of that. I had a birth pool. I had like a birth sling
Mhm.
that's like an Australian, I don't know if you've seen it. It's like an Australian product where you can kind of like hang there.
Oh, the hanging thing. Yes, I
Oh,
have seen those.
I didn't even use it, Natalie. I didn't even use it because birth went so quick. It was really crazy. I didn't even use my birth tub either. It's
Wow.
crazy. But yeah, just with all that, I was so peaceful the whole pregnancy. I was just constantly crying tears of joy and just like feeling aligned and feeling happy and excited and just like I was at the right place. I was planted exactly where I needed to be. Everything felt so divine.
Mm.
And I just was so happy to do that. And then when it was time to give birth, it was so quick. And
Wow.
I was literally like walking around the grocery store for the family I nannied for. I would do their grocery shopping. I had this huge full cart of stuff, like a whole cart. And the entire time I was shopping for them, I was contracting. I was in like pre-labor. This is less than 12 hours before I give birth. And when I check out, they're like, "Oh, you need two grocery carts to carry everything out." And so they're helping me, and I just put all the groceries away, and I'm contracting. And I have my 4-year-old son with me at this point, too. So he's with me. We're doing all the things, and I'm just like breathing through contractions. And then I'm like, "Okay, it's time for me to go home." And I like told my boss, I was like, "I can't come in. I can't, pick up your son from school today. I'm going to have to tap out at the end of this grocery trip thing." And she's like, "Okay," because they were expecting me to go into labor at any time, anyways. And yeah, and I played with my son on the floor that whole afternoon. I made dinner while I was
Mhm.
contracting. We all ate dinner together. And my partner played with Ezra before he went to bed. And then Ezra was asleep at 9. And then 9:45, baby was born. Just
Whoa.
really wild, yeah. So I didn't even
Oh my
really
gosh.
get any support from anyone, really. Like there was nobody there like holding my hand or telling me anything. It was just me in my space enjoying being this independent goddess, and it went so
Yeah.
quickly. I thought it was going to last so much longer than it did, and I was prepared for that. And
Oh.
yeah, I think the only thing I have to say that I would have changed about it is I kind of wanted it to feel like a bigger deal because it did go so quickly, and it just blended right in. Like I was asleep by 12. I was asleep by midnight with my new
Mhm.
baby
Oh
in
my
my
God, it was just like a
arms.
normal day.
Huh?
So I'm like, it was just like a normal day. And you know what? It's
Yes.
so interesting to think about that because it's like, um, like what it reminds me of is just like free birth really can be like that. Just like a lot of women explain that it's just like a regular day in their life because they're just going about their life as per usual. But I totally get
Yes.
you that you were like, wait, but I also wanted it to be a little bit like sacred. But it also
Yeah.
is because you were the one calling all the shots and like your partner
Mhm.
was there and like your family got to be together. And yeah,
Yes, yes, and it wasn't this whole ordeal where I had to stand up for myself. I was just the one in charge. There was no one that I had to answer to. It was
yeah,
just everyone answers to me
yeah.
and my goddess energy.
Wow.
Mhm.
And what
Yeah.
was that postpartum like?
That postpartum was like, okay, I am staying in bed and not leaving my bed except to go to the
Mhm.
bathroom, like for the first week. And then I just kind of did that thing. I feel like it's what? A first week in bed, second week near the bed, third
Mhm.
week, in the house, no housework. So my partner
Yeah.
is so, 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 so supportive of me, and he did absolutely everything. I didn't lift a finger for the first, I would say, month. He
Wow.
just took such good care of me, and I established breastfeeding, and I'm still breastfeeding.
Mm.
And I didn't have any of that rage with letdowns. It was so good. And that was another thing that I wasn't fully certain if I could do it, but I was like, I'm going to give it my best. And so I was
Yeah.
constantly, constantly breastfeeding and like just so like I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And then I did, and I have been, and I didn't have to use formula or supplement with anything. It was just my body is capable. It was that
Yeah.
that was another thing too throughout the birth and the postpartum is my body's capable. My body is capable.
Mm.
And it surely was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, what I love too about the like just the differences in your first or in your second, like both are your stories and both are so sacred and important, but it's like the first one, there was so much complexity and like overthinking, like, well, is this the right thing? And I have to go and fight for myself. And then there's this like hormonal thing. And do I need the episiotomy? And was that necessary? And The
Mm.
second one, it's like it was just simple. Like you just like had this baby and you went to bed and you breastfed. Like it was just simple because everything got to move how it was supposed to move, and you got to be connected to your thread of intuition, which is always going to lead you towards the right outcome or towards the like best, highest outcome for your family.
Yes. Yes. And
Mm,
it's really changed my outlook on life as a whole. Like
mm,
self-responsibility and being connected to that intuition and allowing ourselves to be the ones who are listening and are paying, like we're the ones that are taking in the information and deciding what to do with it.
yeah.
It it can be something that impacts us in our whole lives, and I feel that. Yeah, I'm only a year-ish postpartum from that birth,
Mhm.
and I think I'm still reviewing my birth at times and like still pulling things from that period of time because, yeah, it really has the power and potential to impact me in endless ways.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to ask, which is similar to what you said, I love to ask women, like, who have you become? Like, who have you become from this experience? And
Mm.
I'm sure that's ever evolving, but
Well, who have I become? I've become so much more confident,
mm,
so much more confident, and I'm able to kind of approach people differently and make friends a lot easier. That's just one really practical way that
oh,
I've changed
that's
is I'm
cool.
really connected to people differently. It's like I'm not thinking about what people think as much. I'm not thinking about what people like what their opinions are or anything like that. And I'm able to just walk up to anyone and start a conversation because I think I have taken that power back. It's like that's mine. Like I
Yeah.
am in charge as well. Like, obviously we have compassion for people and we think we do care for people, but this confidence that's come through has been amazing. My community has blossomed even more in the past year than it
Mm.
has in a really long time. Like I have so many close friends, like this one friend I have today who is watching my sons for me downstairs. She brought her daughter with her and
Oh,
we watch each other's children so that we can each get some mama time where
yeah.
we are in our own energy, and that relationship wouldn't have happened if I wasn't confident enough to say hello and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, here's who I am. What do you think?"
Yes. Oh, I mean, that's such an edge, right? To like really show up as yourself and allow yourself to be seen because that's also the only way that like true connection can happen with other human beings. And so I love that like
Mm.
it makes so much sense that like from choosing to birth on your own terms and like choose yourself, you've then been able to from that like whole and complete place within like connect more deeply with others. That's so special.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Mm.
Mhm. Yes. And then through that too, like that understanding that's come in, I've realized like in when I'm in alignment with my energetic truth and how that flows and changes with my cycle or with anything really. And if I'm respecting that and honoring it and doing what I need to do in order to honor it, whether that be going slower, moving slower, or taking some space, whatever it may be, that the people like my children, especially that don't really have a way to, like, they're just kind of at the mercy of my choices because I am
Mhm.
their mother.
Yeah.
They they are also in alignment with their soul because I'm in alignment with my soul. Like they have a soul contract that is wrapped up in mine.
Hmm.
And so when I am true to my soul contract, which is also in part being true to my cycle, they
Hmm.
are also doing what they need to be doing and following that same thread of intuition.
Hmm.
And I feel it, I see it, and not so much for my baby because he's still just like wants to be with me all the time. But my
Cute.
other son, he is just wants to be around people constantly. He gets his energy from being with people. And I get my energy from being on my own. And so, as you can imagine, that's not a very compatible relationship, especially when the one who needs energy is the baby.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do I pour from an empty cup? I need some space. And so then he is literally getting drained every time I'm getting filled. And I'm getting drained every time
Whoa.
he's getting filled.
So
And
interesting.
yeah, and then even in human design, I see this for him. His environment in human design is the valleys where people can all
Mm,
gather and come
mm.
together as a community. So he needs to be, connected to the real world. Whereas my environment is a cave. And I like to I like to be all huddled up and very much in control of who comes in and who does not come in my space. And then obviously I venture out of the cave, but and he
Yeah.
obviously ventures back into the cave. But just to have that awareness too of like, okay, this is our energetic truth, and
Yeah.
it's important for me to come out of my comfort zone. It's important for him to come out of his comfort zone. And if I am constantly catering to him and not my own energetic truth, then he's never
Mm,
going to come out of his comfort zone, and vice
mm,
versa. And and so that's also helped me to kind of release guilt in a sense of like, oh, like I'm not doing enough for my child, whatever, because he needs more sociability, whatever. He never really seems satisfied with the
mm.
amount of people that he's around or with the amount of things that we do, the places that we go. He's always just like more, 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 more. And he's a kid. It's not
Of
even greed
course.
at that point. It's just love.
Yeah.
And I can see that and I can hold that space. And he he's been getting, a lot more comfortable with kind of being in his own energy on
Mm,
his own,
mm.
playing in a different room instead of following me everywhere I go, which is also something that happens as mothers. Is like, I will go into a room to go do something and everyone comes in, the cats, the kids, everyone's here in the room. And then I'll go and do a different thing in a different room and everyone follows me in there. And I'm never really alone. And so I'm like, I need alone time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I do get alone time and all the kids are asleep, my cats are like, "Oh, finally the loud things are away in bed.
They're like, our
We can."
turn.
Yes. Which, it's not verbal talk. I'm not like, "Oh my gosh, I have to entertain you, you cat." But yes, and I think that's just like also as mothers, like if we think about Mother Earth and mothers, like it makes sense that all of the beautiful creatures that depend on us as mothers or as Mother Earth, like we will kind of deplete the mother in a way, but like she still is always giving. And that's why I also sometimes feel a little conflicted when I hear people say, you can't pour from an empty cup, because it's so true. But when it comes to mothers, I feel like there's always like a reserve, like there's
Mm,
stores. There will come to a point where you think your cup is empty, and yet these beings, these little babies, will be like, well, we need more. And
yeah.
somehow I find it and I'm
Wow.
able to give it to them. And it's not like gonna be like this forever. It's such a short time where that demand on my energy is it feels almost so selfish from my beautiful children. But it's not for a very long time, and
Yeah.
I can fill my cup in ways that don't, fully deplete their cups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I love hearing it. And it like I think for so many women and for who are, doing this mothering path, like taking it as a conscious path, it's like really a spiritual path, like to attune to your needs while also like understanding that there are others who are dependent on you and dependent on you having enough to give them. So it feels like it becomes this opportunity for you to expand your capacity to give and to like
Mm,
have just like an even bigger, fuller heart, which is like I can imagine so cool. And also with its challenges of like, well, my son needs so much like external stimulation and I need my internal time. But I also think it's so beautiful for you to be able to recognize that, like, yes, you can give that to him, but you can also teach him how to be comfortable on his own because I think that's a really important life skill. And so to like hold that standard as a mother and know that that's something you have to offer him is like a really beautiful, cool blueprint.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it also totally works with homeschooling, which is also what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, and because we're home together all the time,
Yeah.
we're not home all the
Yeah.
time, but we're together all the time.
Together all the time. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm just like really grateful for this time we've had together to hear your stories. You know, it's like I was telling you this before we begin, but I think it just like I think of these podcast episodes as really like weaving our own personal myths that like we've all really been on this like life journey, and sometimes saying it all out loud, it's like, whoa, yeah, like I can see like where I learned a lesson and what it brought me to and who I've become. And then it's
Mm.
also like, wow, we're all like we're still so young. Like there's just going to be so much more of this. Kind of crazy.
Well,
Yeah, right.
yes. Yeah.
Like just thinking, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not a mother yet, and so I think about like, oh, well, when I become a mother, that'll be like the settling of my life. And it's like, well, that's a settling into a new phase, but there's other phases after mother. Like there's like that perimenopausal and menopausal like sorceress like phase, and then there's like elderhood and being an old crone, and like what's that gonna be like? And like it's just wild that we get
So
this
much
like
is,
beautiful path.
yes. Yeah. So much has changed for me since this rebirth, and that's one of those things too, is like I don't dread aging.
Mm, yeah.
I don't. I now I'm
Yeah.
excited for it, and I'm not like trying to, there's no, I don't know, there's no lack mindset there where there
Mhm.
once was.
Well,
And
and
yeah,
that
to,
makes sense to me because in free birth, it's like you are being in right relationship with the rhythms of your body. So, of course, that's going to have a
mm,
ripple effect to like trusting the rhythms of the phases your body and you will move through in your lifetime.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it does make sense, and it does feel so connected to all of it. Mm.
Well, I love to end with just asking you to share whatever piece of womb wisdom you might like to leave the women listening. And so that's just like what I like to call just these nuggets that we carry from our experience of like something these women can take with them.
Mm. Well, I think my piece of womb wisdom kind of goes off of a little bit of what I shared with being a mother, is that as a woman and with a womb, we are holders of energy, we are holders of people, we hold so, so much. And when we're holding these people, or I mean, it's primarily people and space and energy, and we're like attention, and especially as mothers walking around like being the person who creates the energetic rhythms of our home, like we really are like holding it all down, holding it all together, that we really do have to care for ourselves and make
Yeah,
sure that the space we're holding is in integrity with our health and our mental health, our emotional health, and physical health. And yeah, and to notice when we're not holding a space that feels good for everyone, and we can tell that. I usually can tell when
yeah,
I need to slow down,
yeah,
because I'm not, the quality of the space that I'm holding maybe has gone down. It's not the highest quality anymore.
totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
It's been so wonderful to talk
I
with you and to
know.
share my story. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful. I'm so grateful we had this space to go deep together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning into the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it could reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle, in the show notes below. There, you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions, shop the herbal shop, and any group programs that I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.